Hey folks, and welcome to a Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, directed by Howard Hawks, The 7-Year Itch by Billy Wilder, Some Like It Hot by Billy Wilder, The Misfits by John Huston, and finally, newly released, Blonde, directed by Andrew Dominic. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Vincent Daly, how's it going, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay on this side. How's it going for you in your week?
Monroe-filled week.
Yeah, I like it.
It was good, honestly. And episode 52, we are...
Yes! Happy 1-year anniversary, Vin. Happy 1-year birthday to the show.
We are 260 movies into watching on the podcast, and it is a blur. It's an absolute blur.
It's so true, but it's shocking we're at 52.
Oh, yeah.
It happened fast.
It did.
We're in the 20s, next thing you know, we're in the 30s, and the 40s flew by like that.
Absolutely.
It really did, actually.
And I think where it flew by as well as those early days in the podcast, we had kind of the lead up to first Oscar season and whatnot. So
we were playing catch up.
Yeah.
For those first few as well.
Yeah.
But...
And maybe, I don't know, maybe our anniversary will always be for October, spooky months, kind of going into it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, we'll always have Halloween-y anniversary type of episodes. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening so far. I mean, 260 and still going strong. We got a lot of movies to cover.
It's fantastic.
Still.
Over 800 total on this site, which is unreal.
Yeah.
And the fact that I think we're in a year anniversary, and the fact that we're doing an all Marilyn Monroe, there's something glamorous about that.
Yeah. And no joke, I really enjoyed watching all these movies this week. I mean, some of these don't have amazing scores for me to give, but like... I don't know.
You did a study. You did it, and it was a good study to do.
Yeah.
Because you had not seen a single Marilyn Monroe film, correct?
No, not a single one. And even some of these more famous ones. When it comes to, as well, this kind of scratching an itch, in the same way I like watching Fred Astaire movies and just old movies in general.
Of course, yeah.
There's... I don't know. I think these movies, especially some of the earlier ones, they have a lot going for them, and I find it fascinating to watch in modern day for that reason.
Yeah.
Like, is this actually worth your time in present day watching this old movie?
And to that, I love that the bulk of these are in the 50s too, which we know we really need to fill out the 50s a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start there. I love it. It's our 52nd episode. It's Marilyn Monroe episode, which is great. Almost a special. Mm-hmm. It basically is a special.
Kind of, yeah. Just short of a study of Monroe's career.
Yeah, it's basically since we have a new release, we just throw it in normal.
I think for those notes real quick, I would say if there's anything missing here, if you want to drop Blonde, folks at home, and make this more so of a Marilyn Monroe watching list, I would just add on the film Niagara, which is technically before Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, earlier in her career before. But Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is like the real breakout. That's
what counts.
Yeah. That's the real start of wow. It's Marilyn.
Okay, That's the thing I don't know.
Yeah. It was just a lot of research. I didn't know walking into this week either. So
it's fun.
Yeah,
it's a fun week
for sure.
And some of these are snappy too. Some of them are quick.
Oh yeah.
But let's stop. So let's go back there. It says 1953, and as you say, maybe not the first, but the first actual big boy. It's like Stagecoach for John Wayne, almost. If you want to bring it down to that.
I have John Wayne notes already in this episode.
Perfect.
So he's read my mind.
Because Howard Hawks?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is 1953. This is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. It's directed by a very famous director, Howard Hawks.
Yeah.
And how was Marilyn Monroe, and how was this film?
Great. I thought this movie was real solid. Definitely skyrocketed Marilyn to the heights of her career, just because this film it kind of is what we see later on in her career that. Almost, I'll make the comparison a little bit later on, but it's just for kind of the sex symbol itself. But there's a balancing act here. There is the equal part sex symbol, but it's also trying to make a fun character out of maybe a little bit of a morally gray character with this. Like you said, Tom, directed by Howard Hawks, definitely a hidden fave of ours. We don't talk about Hawks too much, but through his work with John Wayne, definitely a fave of both of us on the podcast.
He's one of Tarantino's favorite directors.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. He's got some big films.
He really does. And also has been around the block.
Yeah, influential director, big time.
Yeah, so that if there's anything kind of coming off of this, I'm definitely interested in tackling him as a director, because he has just so much to his name. This movie is a musical comedy. Again, this is probably the closest to represent both in age, but also to those older style of musical comedies that maybe, jumping back to February, we covered with a Fred Astaire, or just that type of style of where the characters themselves are entertainers, and that's how we get musical scenes in the movie. A good bit more raunchy. Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell play showgirls. Different thoughts about love, different kind of thoughts about about what they want out of love and a romantic partner. Marilyn believes you should only fall in love for money, and Russell believes you should fall in love for looks. And again, in a totally good way, we have a certain, not badassery, we have a certain cool factor to these two characters. The film is not obsessed with trying to make them moral, or they're trying to, prove that they're goody two-shoes or some way. The film is very comfortable in the fact that they are kind of morally gray, maybe a little bit, they want what they want, and they're going to get done what they want to get done. So I was happy with that, especially to your note, how I've commented in the past, the 50s are a little rough because I don't like how squeaky clean it is sometimes.
Yeah, and not only that, to have it's two female leads and not two guy leads either.
Yep.
One running the show, two are morally gray. Kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably different for that time, and I think that is kind of, like you said, I don't know if badass is
right. Yeah, I don't know why
best thing, but
I'm lacking a word for it. But yeah, there is a.
They hold their own.
Yes,
they hold their own basically, and it's not classic. Maybe what a good-looking woman role would be for that age.
Absolutely. I have to say both of them were actually great in this. Scenes are probably the weakest when they're alone, but together on screen there is a good back and forth comedy that happens between them that just really works. Jane Russell, I haven't really seen anything else at all as well, but she was dynamite on screen, and again, together there is this, they are on the same page. And there's almost a manipulation of everyone around them, and it was interesting characters especially to see in this kind of musical comedy wrapping paper to it. The confidence that both actresses have on screen, it sells that cool factor to their characters. The story is comfortable with these characters being morally gray, and maybe a little the bad guys or the bad girls in this. And again, refreshing for a 50s movie. This is totally the opposite of something that we covered, like the Rat Pack's Ocean's 11, where the script was downright obsessed with proving that these characters are good guys. Let these characters be bad if they want to be bad.
Yeah.
And this is a great example in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes,
And the two, since like I said, two female leads, and were they competent characters?
Absolutely.
See, that's even back then is a little bit rare.
Perfect example in Monroe's character. Again, weaker when she's alone on screen.
Okay.
But there is she obviously plays dumb. She has the raspy, the wispy voice, the flirty voice. But in the character is specifically using it because she says herself in this that the type of men that she goes after that have money don't prefer her smart. So she's just making herself how she wants, the type of suitor that she wants to get. And she'll even say to the guys that are, that have money, they say, "Oh, what, you just want me for money? What do you mean here?" And she says, "Well, I mean, you want me for looks. You want, I mean, there's a cool." A through line, a rationale to how she operates as a character, and it goes beyond just dumb blonde.
Yeah, it makes a stronger character tenfold.
Yeah, absolutely.
More enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. Where I expected the opposite. I mean, I expected in these early films it just to be the sex icon, just to be sex symbol. And kind of was the opposite, actually. She develops into that later on in the career, and then earlier in before 53, she's actually starring in a lot of dramatic roles. So this was kind of a turnabout. She found her niche as an actress, and then that was blown up more and more.
And those were B films before? Or
not B films. I don't know, maybe.
Okay. Just not high regarded even now, today, critic-wise.
Yeah, the only one that was maybe in the cut was Niagara, which is actually kind of a murder mystery noir story. Before that, though, I think it was just a factor that these films were she worked for the studio and she got those gigs.
The classic stuff, yeah. Exactly. The studio have their people, and that's how it is.
And definitely before a feature, which, again, these 4 films focus as Monroe as a feature and her progression as an actress.
Okay.
So, but yeah, this aspect of kind of morally gray reminds me of Hawke's other films, that he is comfortable casting actors in this way. A favorite of ours on the podcast, Red River, is a great example of this, where it kind of uncommonly casts John Wayne as a not necessarily antagonist, but the antagonistic force to our main character.
Definitely, morally gray, big time.
Which eventually, for the building hype of the John Wayne special, or maybe it's just for Tom that's hyped around it. I really enjoyed Red River for that reason of kind of casting that. And we can even look back to one of his first films, 1932's Scarface.
He did the original.
He did original Scarface. I mean, Hawks is a king, is a legend.
He is well regarded.
Yeah.
I think he's forgotten about now, especially among millennials, don't know him.
Yeah.
Very high regarded, though.
Yeah, I mean, I am very curious to dive more into his work, because, again, there was this trend of he is not afraid to make a bad character the focus, not necessarily the villain, but again, there's this moral grayness, there's almost reality to it for that reason,
and not giving it, and it's something that holds up till today, 2022, because squeaky clean just not cut it
exactly.
Anyway, it's just
a bore.
Yeah, it's a bore. It's just such a more undeveloped story, and it's not the most relatable thing, because it's just things in life aren't squeaky clean. But especially
with the type of movies we grew up with in the 2000s, gritty, everything gritty. Era.
Definitely.
I think
and coming out of the 90s,
we respond to that reason.
Definitely
for that as well.
But I love the Howard Hawks talk. I love that.
But I'm kind of bringing up some of those examples because there's a good chance, folks at home, you have no idea what those movies are. But he as a director and clearly the type of scripts that he's taking, the type of stories that he's taking on. Or he's comfortable with making it kind of a focus on villains, or a focus on people doing what they want to do regardless of the moral spin to it. And Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was refreshing in that way. I'll say the music numbers are pretty strong. This includes the iconic Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, which of course is, I would say, one of probably top 5, if not top 3 highlights of Monroe's entire career. The choreography, I would say, is a bit dull. Again, my my ceiling or the bar is Fred Astaire,
right.
himself. So I wasn't really thrilled with too much what was going on visually in these sequences. I do want to say that, critically speaking, very iconic for Monroe. This scene is pretty electric to see her, and especially kind of knowing the legend of Monroe, kind of watching this, after the fact. Doing some research into this, I was really watching a lot of audio sync and and just voiceover work with Monroe in these type of musical numbers. As iconic as it is for Monroe, I can't give a huge amount of credit because it's voiced over. You know what I mean? It's overdubbed with a different singer, and I don't know. I think that does take some points away from me, if I'm being honest.
I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
Yeah.
It's funny though. It's funny how you're almost you're afraid to say something bad about.
Or Oh, you just
Or
wait.
yeah.
You just wait.
But it's like because she is this Hollywood darling almost.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, she's not singing. I mean, that's,
Yeah, it's tough. Well, I guess maybe I'm conflicted because I did enjoy the sequence, and it comes on screen, and you can see, wow. I mean, it's iconic, and it's deservedly iconic.
How was it? So when you're watching it, you're not sitting there and being like, "Boy, is this dubbed?"
No,
Like, does the voice?
but I was hyper tuned into it
At that point, okay.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like the voice kind of matches what she looks like, and they're doing a good job
Yeah,
at syncing.
exactly.
Literally, yeah.
And clearly, part of that. Part of that memorable aspect of it is the voice itself. So,
Right.
I actually don't have the original voice actor or the overdubbed voice actress in my notes, but still, it doesn't go all credit to Monroe. Other than that, I think this film was a very solid watch, well worth your time in modern day, and honestly, a great example of Monroe's presence on screen for both beauty and comedy, surprisingly. We're going to go ahead and give Gentlemen Prefer Blondes a 70 on the dot.
Ooh, okay. I'm
Starting
liking
off
that.
strong.
Yeah, 70 is a good movie right there.
Yeah, we'll see how low we go.
Uh-oh. Well, I just like the fact that, I mean, it's a 53 movie at a 70%.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very good. We should almost have our own 50 scale.
Is it great on a curve
Yeah.
for 50s?
Okay, so Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with the 70%. So, I mean, she's on a roll here in the 50s, really. 2 years later, it's 1955, she does The 7-Year Itch. And this is before she goes on 2 movies with Billy Wilder directing. And set this one up a little bit. What do we get with her return back to the screen?
Sure. So, in the time between these two films, I would say the musical comedy kind of has taken a back seat. We have a evolving landscape in U.S. film and in Hollywood that different things are being explored. Obviously, a lot of play to movies are explored in mid 50s as well.
Okay.
Or stage play to movies, and this is actually a romantic comedy that is dropping the musical element and in the same way was adapted. It really does feel like a more modern rom-com in the vein of what we might see coming out of the 90s or even the early 2000s. It was actually pretty shocking, the modern appeal this film has. And that's not even something I can say of Some Like It Hot, directed by the same director, and later on, it's weird. There's a weird kind of anomaly with this one, a 7-Year Itch.
So when you say that it feels like a modern, is it taking the same formula kind of post When Harry Met Sally? Because that really launched a whole different kind of comedy. Like every romantic comedy after that in the 90s and even the 2000s kind of took that same formula.
Maybe some of the timelessness of it comes from being a onstage adaptation. At the same time, though, I think it's really in the editing. There's some sharp editing. There's some quick edits.
Oh, so it literally felt like a newer movie.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But no, I think you bring up a good point because even the dynamic of, you look at romances, again, well, I mean, Fred Astaire type of movies, you look at something like Easter Parade, and it's like, I didn't love him, and now I love him, and that's romances. Yep. This, it feels modern in the sense that there's almost a passive aggression, there's an aggression that becomes love,
there's
what I mean?
There's complexity to it. It's not so cut and dry.
Exactly. It's got some spice to it. Clearly, the very premise of the film is a little dicey as well. The 7-Year Itch refers to the superstition that a man can only stay loyal 7 years into a marriage. Our man here is put to the test. Tom Ewell? Is it Elwell or Ewell, you think?
Ewell? Ewell, it sounds too. Let's go Tom Ewell.
Tommy boy.
Ewell, or maybe he's Tom Ewell.
Ewell.
Tommy, how's Tommy?
With his wife and son on vacation to escape the hot summer city. He is put to the test, and that test is Marilyn Monroe herself. She plays the hot new neighbor. We basically watch Ewell be tortured by this fact. I have to be honest here. I thought this was going to be a lot more dated and possibly a lot more creepy with the premise. But I gotta give my hats off. Our director here rides the line well. It never dips into a creepy, rapey, nothing
Sure,
like
sure.
that. Even with the topic of like infidelity, it's always kind of it's done in almost a lighthearted, kind of heartwarming way.
Okay.
Good editing here, I think, is my top compliment. And with older films, I think that is key. With older comedies, it's even more key. It's interesting. I mean, the film dabbles a lot with going into these almost sketch segments that we go to Tom's overactive imagination and how he views certain women coming onto him, where in reality that's not the case. I think that's also part of why this rides the line so well, is that he is played for the laugh almost all of the time. His delusions or his manicness or his nervousness, that's always played for the laugh. It's never ever dipping beyond that. And I think that's what kind of makes a lot of this all right and not creepy. I mean, that's what is the secret to the success.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's a thin line, to balance on that. And that's impressive.
Yeah.
If he's kind of right in that.
That's where I was coming back to this. I was like, oh boy, we have Marilyn Monroe. We have, this infidelity plot. It's, I was worried.
It's the 50s too.
Yeah, I was worried it was going to be a real creepy movie, but it was not bad.
Wow. Okay, very cool.
And no joke, a fairly funny film. Our character has an overactive imagination, like I said, and it cuts away to the idiocy of these fantasies. That's what I enjoyed the most about the kind of the sketch setup. We have these flashbacks, and it kind of keeps things moving along brisk and also pretty funny. He'll slip on something, or he'll come out of the dream sequence in some way. And the edits, I mean, they're really good. The film is well cut to make sure that, like, if he falls or he does some sort of physical comedy, it has punch to it.
Okay.
So, again, unexpected for 55, but I think there's a couple of key elements here to why the magic works here. Monroe's performance, on the other hand, I would say is not the greatest.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Unfortunately,
I almost feel like this would be the role for her.
Right.
And just no.
Yeah. Watching this, I watched these in exact sequential order.
I think that would be the way to do it.
Yeah, and seeing the progression and for
me... And you
me,
say blonde for last?
Yeah,
well,
blonde
cool.
for last.
I think that's good. That's good.
And believe me, I'll take my brownie points of picking wonderful films actually shown in the film.
Okay.
But I'll put a pin in that. Monroe's performance here, if I had to explain it in modern terms, it would be like adding Megan Fox to a film. It is for sex appeal and sex appeal alone, and there's just nothing more to it.
All looks, no substance.
Yeah,
okay.
and we clearly know she has more to give dramatically, whether that be her early career or where she returns to eventually in her career. I think it is by far just the writing. The writing is just far too dumb. She makes her far too oblivious. That infects these type of solo scenes where I commented with Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, those solo scenes where Marilyn is alone without that nice electricity between Jane Russell, kind of girl talk back and forth.
Yeah.
That was actually really quite funny. These solo scenes, it's too childish in tone. It's too, it doesn't keep up with
this
the wit.
Dumb girl.
Yes.
This is dumb girl. Okay.
Yeah, this is where, unfortunately, my praise really goes to the wayside, because not only is she written like that, yes, that is her progression. I mean, 7-Year Itch is one of the big three, for her, as far as big iconic roles
right.
for her. I would say the only one that's kind of the outlier from this even list this week, folks, is the Misfits, and I'll cover that for a very specific reason. But yeah, it's again, not to oversimplify it, but it's throwing Megan Fox into a comedy or something like that. The writing is just... They're putting her in a box. And I'm not saying she has to be intellectual or anything like that, but the comedy fails as well.
Okay. So the writing was one just kind of second rate.
Yeah.
And the acting then wasn't much on top of it.
Yeah. Monroe's role is purely one note. It's just a sex icon to be the spot of the husband's admiration.
Is this where we get that famous scene with her on the grate?
Yes.
And the wind coming up and everything with the dress? Okay.
Yep.
So what percentage of time do we see... would you say she's the main character, or is it the guy is the main character?
It's pretty much him. She is, I mean, she's definitely co-lead in a sense, but yeah. It's from Ewell's perspective, and again, it kind of so much time is dedicated to his kind of neurotic romantic type of fantasies,
right, okay,
of how much credit he's built up in the relationship and how much he's going to overcome it and how much he's doing better on his diet and not smoking cigarettes, and then she knocks at the door and then he's smoking a cigarette and drinking with her. You know what I mean? So he's the focus because he's often the point of the joke as well, and that's where I mean, like, she cannot keep up in these scenarios either. He'll be going off and kind of setting up his own jokes and also hitting his own punchlines. And Monroe is there just to kind of be oblivious to it, what he's talking about, kind of make him look like a little bit more of an idiot. And yeah, it just does not work as a performance for her. You read my mind. Disappointingly, the famous skirt shot is here, and probably the top one most iconic shot she has in film, and the scene plays out a little bit different than the picture. The picture, I think, is outlives the film itself.
It's more iconic than...
Yeah, the framing of it is better. This skirt shot, I don't know. I mean, not saying I was, like, looking for,
but it's famous.
Provocative.
No, but it's like one of the most famous Hollywood images of all time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit let down when the scene wasn't really great itself. So, just again...
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
How could it live up?
Exactly.
How epic,
and maybe
how
that's
epic
my
could
expectations.
No, I think that would be anybody's expectations. I think people would be like, oh, all right, there it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm serious. Like, think about famous shots in a film or things that came from... What are some of the big ones? I would say maybe like King Kong on top of the Empire State Building.
Sure. Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
So I feel like it could only underperform in the actual film.
There is an unrated version of this, which has the same runtime. I didn't watch it, but maybe I should have. That there was that could have been longer or more
risque,
or it didn't.
The film would be better.
I guess my problem is, and again, I'm not looking for this. Like you want to see the shot or something. Like it was more so like. Why was this iconic? Was it just the photo going viral or not viral? What am I saying?
Well, back in the day, viral. Technically.
It was the photo kind of in the tabloids and whatnot, and that's what kind of pushed it out.
I think representative of her, basically. Yeah.
The scene itself was like almost like, oh, and it's over. Okay. So, but yeah, that was a big reason why we touched on 7-Year Itch because that is the top. That is when you think Marilyn Monroe, you think the skirt over the train sewer. Train sewer. What am I saying? Train.
You're a New York boy. Come on.
Train sewer. What am I saying? It's the event. But yeah, I would say this film surprised me a little bit with some laughs. But honestly, I don't walk away dying to recommend this one because. Yeah, it's funny in ways, but I think for the rating it is right on the edge of the coin, if not just very slightly over on the right side of it, because it did feel surprisingly modern, and I want to give credit to that.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, but as a comedy, I mean, again, I did get some laughs. It did get some laughs out of me. I just think, I don't know, it just boils down to, man, this is really not a great performance for Monroe. And I certainly wasn't coming to the picture for anyone else. You know what I mean? For the Monroe study. Wasn't watching it for anyone else. I think that could be good enough for something that could have been a disaster to watch in modern day. So credit there. Like I said, this does ride a certain line. And that is primarily why I feel that it is on the right side of the coin. We're going to go ahead and give the 7-Year Itch a 56.
Oh, okay. 56 got up there, okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I was thinking that this was going to be a lot more creepy, a lot more dated. You know what I mean?
I would say that you wouldn't discourage people from watching it if they're going to go through kind of a Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, because honestly,
themselves.
Regardless of ratings, I would live and die by this list that I crafted.
Good, yeah.
I mean? This kind of watch list I thought was dead on for understanding her progression as an actress.
Okay. All right, so that's the 7-Year Itch in 1955 with the 56%. And we'll move on. So the editor, by the way, also did Planet of the Apes and did Patton.
Like OG?
OG Planet of the Apes.
Oh, okay.
So he did some other big titles too as well. But, okay, so this is now 1959. Again, kind of capping her 50s run here. This is Some Like It Hot, again directed by Billy Wilder. what did we get with this now?
So yeah, this film is considered one of the greatest comedies of the time and marked as the first appearance of cross-dressing in the film. Billy Wilder is the same director here, like you said, Tom, and similarly to the last film, I was kind of walking on eggshells on how dated this experience was going to be and feel watching today. Luckily, once again, coming out of this with my skin still on, you know what I mean? I was not saying that this was, this wasn't on the list to get canceled or anything like that.
Right.
Know? It is completely, it rides the line, and I think more so my thoughts on it is it more so just worth your time? When it comes to the story starts here actually in 1920s Prohibition Chicago. Jazz musicians Joe and Jerry are in between gigs and happen to see a mafia hit squad do some dirty work. To escape, they both cross-dress to join a women's-only band and leave town to go to Florida. I mean, as far as the performance here, I don't know. It's like every joke that you've ever heard on a sitcom. Okay. Yeah, it's
been a lot of rinse and repeat since 1959.
Exactly. And maybe there's credit that this is the originator. This is one to write the jokes that we've seen in every sitcom and probably a handful of, trashy 2000s movies like White Chicks and things like that. Right. So, it's a bit different watching it in modern day. And I think that's maybe where audiences would be pushed to say, wow, this is the greatest comedy of our decade.
Right.
Maybe we're seeing the cobwebs on it a little bit. Marilyn Monroe is the lead singer in this band, and right off the bat, she is a much better written character. She's dynamic, she has flaws. Very early on, we discover she has a drinking problem, and her family disowned her. This is a factor that we, these more dramatic elements, we have her exploring earlier, pre-Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, but was not getting the notoriety. And why we focus on it here for this kind of watch list, folks, is there's the mixing now. Monroe is still just as much as a sexual icon, and why she's being part of this film, and why she's actually, despite not having, she's the love interest in this. Really, it's the show of the two gentlemen. I don't have the names written down.
Well, Jack Lemmon is one.
Yes,
so
yes.
Which is huge, and Tony Curtis.
Yeah.
So I mean, big names.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to her involvement, she kind of takes second seat to their duo kind of first seat to this.
Yeah. So the fact that you have two cross-dressing guys and kind of taking the show, you can imagine that that's where a lot of the comedy is going to come
absolutely.
from.
Absolutely. That's also the kind of, there's almost a Scooby-Doo-ness of them running away from the mob too. I mean, quite literally, there are shots that there are hallway shots that they're running down different hallways and then they get mixed up. I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, there maybe is enjoyment in watching this as the originator of so many jokes. I was not laughing though because I've grown up with these jokes. And
you had no laugh out loud moments.
Not a single one. Where at least with 7-Year Itch, there was some kind of outrageousness. There was these sketch kind of ideas, where it was just like, so now been there, done that.
This has just become corny.
Yeah. And again, it kind of feels bad to maybe knock an original movie like that, but
we're in the here.
Hey, we are in the here and now.
Yep.
I am not watching this back in '59. I am not calling it the greatest comedy of my generation. So. There is, there's still kind of a musical rom-com element, or I would say echoes of that, but it's kept pretty light in tone. And even with something as simple as Monroe's voice, it sounds a little bit more natural. It's a little bit more real. It's less kind of that breathy, flirty, kind of thing. She's already toning it back, and I would say we see the peak of her toning it back completely in the Misfits just 2 years later.
Okay. So. And the more she tones it back, the more you're enjoying that performance, correct? Or no?
Yeah, because it's clearly an act. And it's clearly either the director, the writer, the production, her acting coach telling her she has to amp this up in some way. Or maybe she's doing it herself and she understands her brand.
Right.
Which is completely fine, but that's where I really enjoyed kind of watching the progression of her come into her own and have confidence in her acting, because she does bring some dramatic strength to her acting. When it comes to the development of her roles aside, I have to be honest, I just was not thrilled with this movie, as you as you may be picking up already. I just feel that even if you are dying laughing at these kind of gender swap jokes, it is still really just one note.
2 hours and 1 minute.
Exactly. You know, make it an hour 30.
Yeah.
I mean,
the premise, it could be an easy hour 30.
you hooked up to my Google Notes.
Are you gonna get in
I
my
was
hitting them all?
about to say certainly not 2 hours. I'm telling you, like, it's hour and 30, maybe be a little bit more fresh, you know.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe, you know, I would have. It feels like the towel is wrung way earlier on in the film on these type of jokes, because they really, as soon as they dress up, it's a mile a minute. You know, how do girls walk like this? And you know, how do you keep them up? You know,
Right.
like, you know, it's shit like that. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's funny, but it's
goofy
also
now.
like,
It's corny.
Yeah,
It just doesn't age well.
exactly.
And I think because it's been there, done that.
And I just feel like it's just those type of jokes have been done to death. Not even saying in any sort of way that, you know, like cross-dressing jokes like that, you know, aren't acceptable. It's just more so it's really been done to death. So I suppose the credit goes to Wilder as a director for writing the line again, because I don't think any of this was really in poor taste. Both of these films, I kind of saw, I was in my research, I was like, oh boy. What am I walking into here? But you know, and maybe those curious of a originator, an origin of a style, origin of a comedy, what some claim as the greatest comedy of a generation, you know, this could be a slight recommend for me. I guess watching in modern day, I just have seen the joke rehashed in every TV sitcom and everywhere, from, you know, crappy comedies. You know, I mean, I have a hard time disassociating that with this being a crappy comedy, because the other ones are crappy comedies. But I was just a little numb to the setup, and full disclosure there, especially if you are a lover of Some Like It Hot. As far as me trying to like this, I really tried to like this film. Maybe a second watch I could kind of come out.
I doubt it. You'd probably hate it more.
Yeah, I probably would, because then the jokes aren't going to land at all.
Yeah.
You know, I'm expecting the jokes. I mean, just waiting for the punchline. Yeah. But critically, you know, this film is incredibly revered. Something in reviewing a lot of these films, I try to stay away from other scores and other ratings as much as possible. And that's no trouble when I have new movies, or I have just movies off of a random list that I'm pulling from. These films, it took intensive research, and it kind of is insane to me how many of these old films have just not been updated as reviews. Like, you look at Rotten Tomatoes, you look at anywhere, these are reviews probably being pulled from back then, when it comes to like paper publications.
Yeah.
And
that's how a lot of people do it sometimes, actually.
Yeah. And no one has watched this in modern day, so you know, that kind of makes me
exist.
Yeah, exactly. That makes me excited to be a little bit controversial with my rating here of such a critically revered film. But if anything, I was looking at this and I was just like, what am I missing? What am I missing?
Right.
I'm not missing anything. I don't regret the time watching it. Certainly, if you are curious about Monroe's progression as an actress, this is notable and kind of serves as a half step to what we see in the Misfits. But I'm coming out of this pretty lukewarm for the classic of Some Like It Hot. We're going to go again and give it a 55.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised it got above 50.
Yeah, you thought, yeah.
So it was better than, I mean, if 50's average, this is a pretty average film.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be in like the 30s or 40s.
No, I think it would have easily been down there if, for any reason, you know, I found the jokes out of pocket or just didn't stand up to modern day watching.
So really what you're trying to get across to people is it's a meh film, and you really want to get across it is not
What? 99? I think
Dude,
something like that.
Metacritic,
Yeah,
gotta give it a 98.
98.
Which Metacritic is usually we're the best when it comes to it. Like, when it comes to
There's the
being a
plug.
critic, yeah.
Yeah.
But Metacritic sometimes get books up when they get it wrong, and I
Sure.
think this is one of those cases.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: I think people, I bet they go back in the old reviews, and then that's all it is.
Exactly.
And for Rotten Tomatoes, I think
It's pulling
Absolutely.
from these old
I don't even-
publications.
maybe, and you know what? But it has a 94% audience score. I think people are afraid to dislike films like this because
absolutely.
they have reputation.
Yep.
They see what other people score it, and now they're afraid to go low.
100%.
So an audience member is just like, oh my gosh, they're going to have the same thing. What am I getting wrong in this film? It must be this good, and I'm missing something.
Yep.
Well, maybe it's just not. Maybe it just doesn't hold up anymore.
Exactly.
Maybe it's just not that good of a film.
Exactly.
And back in the day, sure, but we're not back in the day anymore.
Exactly. So
I think that's what it is. I think people are afraid to give it.
Yeah.
People who watch it today and give it a high score, I bet it's because people are afraid to go against the grain on it.
And it's something I didn't necessarily experience with some of the older films that we've been covering, or even, like I said, going back to Fred Astaire February.
Sure.
Because I kind of, once again, I'm trying to stay away from reviews so I'm not even slightly tainted in a direction, you know? It was so research intensive and kind of understanding her career. It was, I couldn't stay away from it. And I definitely did a dive into, wow, what? I mean, these are some real positive ratings on this very simple comedy. You know, I mean, I don't understand.
I think it's a mix of what we talked about.
Yeah.
People are afraid to give it a bad score, and there's a lot of just like drudging up old things of what people thought about back in the time.
Yeah.
Thinking that's how people are actually going to think about it now. But I just also want to make a note, because I don't know if you will, but again, it's not because you actually hate old films or anything like that.
No, I love old films.
Citizen Kane, like some of the greatest films of all time,
absolutely.
They are timeless and everything like that.
Hopefully next we will have 2 months dedicated to an actor that stopped acting in like the 50s. So, you know,
Right.
You know, I like old films for sure.
I mean, Howard Hawks is your new favorite director.
Yeah, stay tuned for the Howard Hawks special.
Okay, but 55, again, it's still better than I thought. I don't want to I don't want,
Right.
Because we're making it sound like it's a 30. It's not.
Exactly.
It's still 55.
Yeah, I think
Which is an all right film. That's what that means.
And sometimes, I listen back to some old episodes, and sometimes it's when we're combating something that people think is the holy grail that we have to go more
98
negative.
on Metacritic.
Right, exactly.
It's higher than Rotten Tomatoes.
I know.
Because I think they go back and look at the New York Times and what the Washington Post said.
Yeah, exactly. And
you just can't do that.
I think you hit the nail on the head that people just kind of go with the grain on things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't want to,
toot our own horn too much. It's our 1 year anniversary. We turn 1 year old.
Are they watching 5 movies a week? I don't think so.
Okay. So that was 1959. This is now 61, and this is the Misfits. And what do we get here? This is John Huston directing.
Yes.
And what tone do we get with Marilyn?
So yeah, this is a pretty interesting drama. Not your run-in-the-mill drama either. I would have to really dive back into early 60s type of stories to see if I could compare this to anything. As of right now, I really can't compare it too much. This one was Monroe's last film before her overdose. And also the last film of legendary actor Clark Gable as well.
Is this his last film?
Yeah, I don't have. I mean, I've seen Gone with the Wind like way back when, but I really enjoyed him in this, and might be interesting to do some Clark Gable watching. I don't know.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Huh.
And interesting. Well, I mean, not interesting, but
you got a great cast in this film. Wow.
Yeah. What's his face from
Montgomery Cliff?
Oh.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were going to say the guy from Red River.
Wrong cowboy. Wrong cowboy.
You were going to say the guy from Red River.
No, we have what's his face from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Go Eli Wallach. Okay, all right. I'm a Monty Cliff fan personally. Red River, Howard Hawks. By the way,
we're going to have to cover Red River now.
It's Montgomery Cliff's one of his last films.
Yeah.
He made only like 2 after this or something like that.
Really?
Mm-hmm,
so yeah, kind of
2 or 3, yeah.
Almost a surreal, crossroads of a lot of actors' lives. So coming at this kind of oddball film. While we covered primarily comedic roles for Monroe, her early career was peppered with these dramatic roles, and I'm very happy to say this is a return to force. I did not watch Niagara or maybe some of those sprinklings of good dramatic roles that she was in, but In this, completely removed is the breathy voice, the flirty voice, the sheer just being a sex symbol, the Megan Fox syndrome, if you will. To her being included in films, and I think that makes me very happy, and why I was really ecstatic to see that she was able to get the roles that clearly she had the range for, and boy, does she have a lot of range in here. Monroe plays a newly divorced woman wandering and kind of looking for a purpose. It is set in the Reno rodeo scene, so we get a little bit of rodeo action, we get a little bit of kind of a commentary of the long gone days of the cowboy, actually like ranch type of setting to it. Throughout the film, she slowly collects a kind of a group of new friends, similar drifters, and we kind of follow a new chapter in all of their lives. Really not a straightforward drama. If anything, why I kind of knock this, and I'll definitely return to this, is that it does feel a little bit directionless. We'll go to a scene, kind of feels like, what are we focusing on? And a conversation and dialogue will be born from a mundane scene that the characters share their perspective on life or their philosophy on something, and the dramatic scenes are kind of built from there.
That sounds very modern.
Yeah.
That sounds very like big hitting director almost.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an interesting film. And
before we sat down, I told you I watched The Master and had a Paul Thomas Anderson weekend, and it's just like, it's a lot of talky. A lot of talky. A lot of like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, right.
Having a conversation.
Yep. So maybe this is in that way. I can't exactly say like a hangout film like a Tarantino would refer to as, because it's not really. The dialogue definitely has a purpose. It's trying to like unpack topics.
You're not having like a good time with these characters.
Yeah.
You're still watching them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
But when you say directionless, is it just also a little bit confused? Even coming out of it, was it like, okay, this was not necessary. This was not necessary.
Oh, for sure. And especially how it ends dramatically as well, or rather lack of dramatically. It just kind of fizzles.
So the dialogue was important, but not really?
It's more about kind of giving us a peer into these drifters' lives, the lessons they picked up along the ways, and then kind of mashing them character between character. And again, that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, I'm a little bit not as positive on recommending this one, because while the dialogues, once we're in them, once we finally stumble our way into it, are they interesting? Absolutely. Is it a window into maybe some of the less explored, more downtrodden feelings of early 60s? I found that to be a very interesting window into those type of perspectives that we wouldn't necessarily see highlighted in Hollywood film, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
In many ways, it felt very indie. It is also no mystery that the Misfits was a colossal commercial failure, and also a critical failure at the time. So, Clark Gable, Monroe, and the others, they're putting a lot into these dramatic kind of dialogues, and definitely studying probably a lot about where their characters and what their characters are bringing to the scene. But yeah, this was easily forgotten and really never paid attention to, even in its day. So,
really? God, you would just think it's the actors would draw them in regardless.
Exactly.
3 big actors. Well, actually more than 3, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe Gable at that time was old hat.
Like on his way out?
Yeah, like, we're going to see the old man.
Marilyn is still crushing it. I mean,
absolutely.
59 was Some Like It Hot. I mean,
it's
she died young, so
exactly.
Yeah.
It's 2 years later, yeah. So I think it was just, again, it was almost this kind of indie type of feel to the film, and interesting for that reason, but it's a little bit of an oddball and just a little bit hard for how it's structured. Like I said, that structure is presenting these different perspectives on life. We'll walk into a scene, does not have much focus, and then characters kind of tackle different viewpoints. I mean, these topics include love, divorce, work and leisure. One of those things, one of the aspects that I mentioned that was kind of an interesting peer into maybe a mindset of an early 60s ranch hand was there's a certain pridefulness about not working under wage, and they keep on bringing this up. I'm like, Okay. And almost to the point that that's kind of the dramatic close on the film, that, you know, they're going to have to hang up the cowboy hat and maybe get a normal job. And it was like, oh, wow, interesting. It doesn't really seem too odd for you and I to have jobs. But, you know, so it's interesting. Hopes and dreams, getting older. I mean, a lot of topics are tackled here. And folks, I mean, if you're interested in kind of maybe taking this slow burn kind of window into this thinking or these character perspectives, I mean, that's where my recommendation lies, but it's definitely not into you got to see the Misfits. You can't believe what's going to happen in this story. If anything, nothing happens.
A lot of story. Okay.
Yeah. Probably the biggest dramatic element is going to the rodeo and just seeing the rodeo. Nothing really happens at the rodeo, but they have conversations at the rodeo. So, and nearly everyone she interacts with has some sort of trauma that they are working through in the film. I have to be honest. I mean, most of the runtime, I was really just wondering where things were going, but understand that the drama is built slowly and it is about testing the character's assumptions about life. You know, there is a mashing of, or the conflict, if you will, is them being on two sides of the tracks,
right? Okay.
In a nutshell. So there's a bittersweetness to Monroe's character here as well. I mean, her somberness has a kind of a surreal element to it. It's foreboding for her real life bouts of depression and obviously where her life goes within the same year or a year later. I forget exactly the year, but I think it is a fascinating watch for that reason. I think this is the best chance we have at seeing Marilyn as an actress and not Marilyn as an icon. I really walked away with appreciating watching these films sequentially to see that development. And again, like I said, brownie points towards me. These are great. Actually, the Misfits is the only one that's not in blonde, but the other three films are like heavily focused on.
Which is weird because it's her last film.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a huge time jump in Blonde, and they don't cover this section, which I think could have been cool. You know, if anything, it fits what the objective of the film is.
Right.
But without a doubt, her best performance and emotional range to boot. I think with these diverse topics, the film leans heavily on what she can bring to the scene. And maybe, you know, there are some areas where the sex appeal is in certain parts, but mostly we have turned a 180 in the style of roles she has. And the few scenes that are brought up in Misfits that are for the sex appeal, if anything, it's for her kind of maybe testing her assumptions around what men want her for or something like that. It's for the dramatic story, and it's for her perspective and growing in this new chapter. But this is by no means a bad film. I just found it wasn't too engaging. Engaging is, again, you know, where the hell is this going kind of feeling as you're watching each of the scenes play out. So it all comes down to if you aren't having much story direction, are you enjoying the time that you're spending with the characters, the hangout aspect of it, if you will? I think this one is hard to recommend for that reason, though, because it really isn't electric. And again, to the very end of the film.
Yeah.
Almost unceremoniously, it just like kind of ends out of nowhere. And, you know, to a certain extent, that's kind of the point of the film. But yeah, it's just not that entertaining. It's not what you think out of a 61 film, and certainly not with this much star power. So performance-wise is where I would recommend this movie, though. I was grateful to see Monroe at her dramatic peak, but I feel the structure struggles to have any resolution, just how these Misfits struggle to deal with these topics within their lives. We're going to go ahead and give the Misfits a 62.
Okay, 62, not bad.
You know what it reminded me of? Power of the Dog.
Oh.
Where everyone had kind of hidden trauma, and it slowly gets unraveled a little bit, and the ranch aspect.
I'd love to go back to see where you got Power of the Dog.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I think it would be around a 62.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe a little bit more because it looked beautiful.
Yeah.
But man, okay, all right, so 62. These are all 56, 55, 62. They're all meandering in a certain spot on the daily ratings. That's tough.
Yes.
Because, again, we talked about it last week where not a bad film. Very difficult to be excited and to recommend.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, what do you kind of do? View as on your will, on your own will kind of deal.
I think the skin in the game, if folks at home you decide to watch some of these, is again for Marilyn's progression as an actress. And believe me, I am no stranger to watching a film just for the study of film of it.
Sure.
Though these are maybe some lackluster scores, I really did enjoy watching the progression of all these films. It was fascinating to me.
And I think for a lot of people that enjoy the show and everything like that, I think they too would even just be interested in going back and going through kind of her catalog a little bit.
Yeah.
Her last film.
Well, it's a short,
this
right?
They were filming it, then she got fired, and then she got rehired, and then she passed away during the filming of it. But they turned it into like a 37-minute short or something like that.
Oh, wow, interesting.
And Dean Martin was going to be
really?
the lead role, yeah.
Wow.
But this is, like you said, her actual true last film.
Yeah.
And at a 62 for The Misfits, directed by John Huston. Okay. John Huston also did Moby Dick, that you enjoyed quite a bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know how I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Because I was really looking at all these directors. Again, fascination of Hawks aside.
Yeah.
I was
Back then, the amount of credits to all of these
know.
names, it's insane.
It's wild.
But okay, all right, 62 for The Misfits. All right, Vince, so before we go to our last film, the now playing in theaters, kind of in theaters, the now playing film.
Yeah.
We just want to go ahead and thank the producers who make the show happen and keep it going. And we do have a producer for today. And Joseph Moskowitz came in.
Joe Moss.
Joe Moss came in with $51 for us, which is great. And let's see what he said here. Joe said 51 episodes, a great number and huge accomplishment.
Wow.
Hey, thanks, Joe. I enjoy tuning in every week. I can't help but be compelled to go see a movie and follow along with Vin's notes.
Oh, that's great.
Certainly makes any watch more enjoyable and shines a nice light into the art that is filmmaking. Tom does a great job of steering the conversation and getting the best out of it. Thanks, Joe. Great job.
Turn the mics on?
Great job to you both. That's right. I come in, that's exactly right. Turn the mics on and just make sure we're good to go. Joe, thank you so much. 51, obviously donated last, during the week and everything like that. We appreciate you saying that, and that's what's cool. And I've said this multiple times, where are you getting, the past year, have you found yourselves into film a little bit more?
$1 episode? I like that.
Do you get? Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
That's good.
$1 a
also,
show.
Can't wait until 4 digits episodes. I guess we're gonna so-and-so donated $1,000.
And that's what we're kind of saying, folks. So, okay. So first off, Joe, you're the executive producer of episode 52. That's awesome, and you're producer of the Daily Ratings, which we appreciate so much. And it's just that thing of doing this and people who are listening and everything like that and engaging, it gets you a little bit excited about film. And then you're going, like you said, he's following along with your notes and watching a film, agreeing, disagreeing on things probably. Sure. But it gets you invested in the film a little bit, and film in general. And I think it's a blast. I know I've been enjoying film a lot more in the past year and a half and 2 years since we've really got this things kicking off and everything on our end. But it's just a blast. And for folks at home, we're 52 in. We're having a lot of fun. We can't wait for the next 52 and the 52 after that. It takes a lot of time for us to be doing this and the setup to do this and everything like that.
For sure.
It is a lot, and so it's a good time, but it would be nice. It's like we said, those producers are what is going to keep this going.
Yeah,
keep
and
us.
Also hearing the engagement is what keeps us going.
It's nice.
What I mean?
Yeah, if it was just you and I talking.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we did. We did that for 4 years, 4.5, 5 years even.
For sure.
Before we started the podcast. But yeah, we're 52 shows in, like I said, but it's still, that's 600. What are we at? No, 260 on audio.
On audio.
And well over 800 on the site, just total. So, which is quite gaining quite a decent catalog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. All these other film guys and podcasts that will spend an hour and a half on a film or an hour or something like that, spoiling the entire thing. We just do things a little bit differently, and we kind of like our system the way it's been going.
Yeah.
It's nice. And no spoilers is nice because you can literally listen and figure out, okay, am I into this or not?
I actually thought about it the other day. I was fiddling around. Tom makes fun of me because I use a defunct podcast app that
God.
one, probably like Russian bots use it or something.
Although watching The statistics, there's a few other people, I will say. I'm shocked with the percentage that app actually takes.
Yeah. But I thought about it the other day, just trying to scramble, even with our time notes or something like that, if there was a spoiler section or something like that. I think it's a bad listening experience to have that type of, especially with podcasts where it's kind of set it and forget it, kind of, you put it in the background or something like that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's just the big thing. It's just people are going to listen to this on their way, while they're working, on their way into work, and it's a lot of it is, hey, should I watch this movie or not? Or this movie just came out. What do I do? And I don't know if spoilers were in there anywhere. It's just go listen to the dozens of other film podcasts that will talk to you about the movies in nauseum.
Yep.
And spoil everything.
Yeah. Oh, and even if they give a spoiler warning, trying to scramble to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's 5 a week. We're building the numbers quick on our catalogs, unlike anyone else.
It's like I said, anyone else watching 5 a week?
Props are due for you, Finn, on that, because it's a lot.
It's
but
exhausting.
In a matter of 50... But in a matter of 1 year, 260 films up is pretty damn good, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is to say, thank you all so much for listening. We do it for you, and we couldn't do it without you.
Absolutely. So. And you specifically, Joe Moss, for this episode, $51 bucks. I mean, it's huge. And like Vin said, $1 an episode.
If that's what you got out of it, fantastic.
It's literally fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And anyone who wants to go ahead and donate, become a producer as well, go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You write a note, just like Joe did today, and we'll read it here on air. We're completely producer supported. It's a value for value model. If you're getting value from any of this, if you can, just send some our way as well, back some value. So we appreciate it so much for 52. Now with that, Vin, we're going to keep things going here. This is the much anticipated, much talked about...
A doozy.
Yes, a doozy indeed. I'm excited to hear about. I unfortunately was not able to finish it.
You watched some.
Yes, I wanted to finish in time, maybe give it Tommy Two Shoes, or just have a back and a little bit
do
of
a follow-up.
Toss it back and forth. Yeah,
Circle back with Tommy Two Shoes.
I don't know the rules. I don't know. There's tight rules for the Tommy Two Shoes. Regardless, this is Blonde. It's the Netflix original. It's NC-17, which is what a lot of the talk about is that it got worse than a rated R rating. I don't know how you want to set this film up.
Okay, yeah.
But you go ahead. How was Blonde? How was Ana de Armas?
Yeah.
And how was the NC-17?
Let me settle in, because this is a doozy. I want this to be I don't know, more relaxed kind of review, because this film is challenging. It's different. It's challenging both for the intensity of what's put at you on screen. I think it's challenging for the expectations of a Netflix watch. I think this is almost outlandish that someone could just stumble into this film on Netflix. Not that I think the film is terrible, but it's just like
I was surprised after clicking play there wasn't another warning or another like you had to do a double click.
I 100% agree.
I was kind of shocked at it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we've been waiting for serious, decent content to come to Netflix.
It's true.
It's been a lot of just poopy movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of just shovel movies.
Did you watch this? Did you get a chance to watch this more than once?
Yes.
Okay.
Watched it twice. Second watch was more so. Yeah, I know. And then I was thinking about doing Something Like It Hot for a second time as well.
Oh, is that right?
To give it a rough, I didn't do it. So.
2 hours and 46 minutes. What journey does this take on?
Well, it feels like 5 hours right off the back. More so because the editing here is stream of conscious. We don't really see any type of day in the life or normalcy it jumps around tragic event to tragic event to tragic event to highlight of her career to highlight of her career. There's almost no fat, not in my usual note of no fat. There's no fat to story beats itself. We don't for instance, we're not seeing like her wake up routine or anything like that. We are jumping from
snapshots of just the most pivotal things. Yeah, it's based on a book, correct?
Yes, fictional account. I don't have a lot of notes on this, but maybe it's a good point to talk about it now. The outrage of this movie is in multiple directions. There's outrage on the rating. There's outrage on the accuracy from Monroe fans and I guess film historians.
They were already pissed at the book.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. People are mad about the depiction itself. People are mad about just what kind of movie? I mean, this is not your average biopic type of film.
Yeah.
This is something out there. Andrew, I think that's actually a perfect bridge. Let's talk about the director a little bit. Andrew Dominik is such a unique director. I think even with this one included, I'm coming out and I really enjoy him as a director. I mean, he's quite unique. I mean, we look at Assassination of Jesse James, we covered on the podcast. It's a seriously odd cowboy movie. You look at Killing Them Softly, a seriously odd mafia movie. And boy, let me tell you,
true.
This is a seriously odd biopic. This is not your triumphant, oh man, what an icon this person was. I mean,
this is like not your Sparks. Your Sparks brothers.
Right, exactly. Good callback. This is down bad. This is feeling bad for what feels like 5 hours. And we'll talk about tone or in a little bit, but after watching this, I can safely say he has really never compromised on his own style, and I really want to give hats off to Dominik as director. I mean, if I'm left with one word to describe his filmography so far, is melancholic, and we are one film away from covering all of his films on the ratings.
Yeah.
So
Killing Them Softly, right?
No, he has one
that?
2009. It is rated. We didn't.
We didn't put audio to it. That's right. Okay.
But I believe it's called The Closer or just Closer in 2009. So that's definitely a watch in the coming weeks because I really do like, I don't know, just for my own kind of collecting mindset of.
I think it's what we all want. That's what I want.
Yeah, knocking all the director's films out.
For sure.
So, how his other films were cast, I mean, they were definitely all very rated R. Very violence was slow but intense.
Yeah.
I think a perfect example of that, if we go back to our Assassination of Jesse James review. His other films were in NC-17, though, and let me tell you, folks, he achieves this rating brutally. I really mean that word specifically, brutally. It is NC-17 with the roughest way it could get to NC-17.
Right, and it isn't because it's a porno.
No.
Which is so often what you get with NC-17. Or when you see NC-17.
You think it's softcore. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Showgirls type stuff or something like that.
Yeah, and again, great callback. More than turning on the mics.
I listen to the podcast. I turn on the mics and I say, I listen.
I think it's a pretty good product.
But that automatically...
Yes.
Is a huge turn off to audiences.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the dreaded score.
And that's even where I bring up this kind of Netflix factor. It's like, it's just someone, like some frat bros could turn this on and be like, oh, you see her.
Right.
No. They're walking away real sad. It's a sad movie. But
walk away going, we should call my mom.
Yeah.
We should call our moms.
Yeah. This slight melancholy, this sadness that is in most of his films is really just dialed up to be almost unpleasant to watch in ways. This film really challenges you in how much tragedy there is to it. The first 20 minutes is a barrage of, I would say, hyper-intense scenes that I said, what am I in for? I mean, especially just like even almost down to the 20-minute mark, I found myself pausing and saying, it's not 20 minutes yet. Like, I was just getting used to the editing style. And yeah, I really didn't find myself agreeing. I'm sorry. I really did find myself agreeing with the rating, though. This is beyond rated R. This film is kind of a fire hose of very intense, very mature story beats, and in ways it's even horrific without being a horror. So I was kind of walking away with this. I was feeling guilty that we weren't starting first episode in October with a horror, horror film. And guess what? It's the secret horror is Blonde. So Ana de Armas' depictions of Monroe reminds me slightly of what we saw with 2021's Being the Ricardos, in that the depiction of Lucille Ball in that was so drastically different than her on-screen presence that you got some haters of the movie. Overall, it's just kind of a shock that you're saying, oh, wow, we're really seeing a different side of this. It reminds me a lot of Being Ricardos in the sense that there's a hyperfixation that the film has to make the character much more intellectual than we would even lead on to be, to maybe combat some of this ditziness, this how she's being cast.
Sure.
To actually contrast it within the film.
Now, were you surprised by this? Because you had to figure that there's more off screen than on screen with her, and that
Absolutely.
There's more of a person there.
And if anything, the focus of why studying her acting roles and how that developed. I liked it a lot. it just reminded me that it was kind of clocked to 11. I mean, she goes into an audition and she's like quoting a playwright, then she walks away and the producer's like, look at that ass. It's almost a little cartoonish in how much they try to clock up the intellectualism. Again, I have no problem with it.
Right.
It's more so I think it kind of meshes poorly. It feels almost identical to what I said in Being Ricardos. It's just like they are jumping through hoops to make sure that, this is not the character
And De Armas delivering on all that.
I think so. There's a lot of talk in the naysayers of this film that she does a terrible Monroe. I think she does a decent Monroe. And I come from this watching 4 movies in a row to gotta get a heads or tails of that. I think what's going to really work for some people is, Ana de Armas has a very strong Spanish accent. So... that does come out, and especially in the moments of intensity, it kind of just sounds like De Armas.
Yeah. I will say, so I think I'm an hour and 20 in or something like that. And I'm kind of impressed with it, I will say. But what's funny, you kind of talking about her stage voice in those first few films where it's just like, like the soft tones. Mm-hmm. She's very that.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yeah.
She's taking that stage voice that maybe you recognize in those films, it seems like. And did she sound like that off stage? Was she that soft-spoken and kind of,
Yeah, flirty, wispy in her voice.
Because that's dialed up too, I would say.
Yeah, I think there may be a commentary that she has to put on that voice because she's upcoming in Hollywood, You've watched a couple of the opening minutes, but part of that is, commentary on how yucky and gross and creepy Hollywood can be. So,
right. So it's almost like Marilyn Monroe became a certain thing, and now she had to play that certain thing on and off stage.
I think that hits the point of the film directly, that Norma Jean became Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
Just how she dyed her hair blonde. That's really the through line here. Another thing that this drastically reminds me of is of the same year, 2021, Spencer, where there is a psychological outlook. There is a lens that we are looking through that portrays this character as broken. Where Spencer, that was only slightly, and we saw how much flack that film got from Princess Diana fans. This film's flack is once again, Monroe is portrayed to be severely broken, almost to the point of having severe mental issues, hereditary mental issues. So I think, oddly enough, if you are a fan of Monroe and wanted to see this as, oh, wow, it's finally Marilyn Monroe's chance as a big biopic, big, Oscar-nominated, type of film, I don't know if this is for you. This is a whole different beast. I liked this movie, but it was a whole different beast. This is not, what you expect out of this. Monroe, like I said, is depicted to have significant medical issues. Let me repeat that. Significant medical issues in this film. Some scenes will come along, and my jaw was on the floor for how shocking they were.
Really?
To the point of being surreal in some points. Okay. I think a great example of this, not of the mental issues, but there's an early sex scene that you probably would have seen with Hollywood socialites that she has. I think that's a good example of how certain scenes are portrayed much more surreal than any kind of biopic would normally be. And I give credit to Dominic as maybe making a tastefulness to the NC-17 in that way. In other ways, though, again, he achieves this rating brutally, and brutally is in what's in those sites are Monroe's mental stability, and it's tough.
It was
watch.
Surprising to see almost the lack of nudity in the film,
right,
because of you equate NC-17 with nudity. That's that's how it is, and because there is sex in the movie, but like you said, it's oddly done. At least for what I saw, some of the scenes were just like, okay, that was, I guess, tastefully done. One was just like kind of a rapey scene, but it wasn't like outrageous like some other classic almost rape scenes that you get that are very brutal.
That would be putting in your face. That would use the NC-17 as an excuse.
Exactly right.
Where, again, I don't know if it was his outcome or desired outcome to get an NC-17
He was, rating. No. He was pissed. They were all upset about it. He was not happy about it. She came out against it. She was like, she disagreed
Really?
with it, and he was very, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
not happy that it got an NC-17.
Well, like I said, I'm not going to, I like him as a director, but I'm not going to backtrack. I do think this is NC-17. And again, it's not because of nudity. It's not because of sexual tones. It is because of very intense, mature scenes.
Content, yeah.
Mature story beats. Like, this should not be watched by a child.
Yeah.
This will affect a child in probably a bad way. An interesting quality that I was really hyper-focused on in the whole film was that there's visuals constantly swapping between black and white and color and a variety of different aspect ratios. Not even just like a letterbox or a 4:3, like just all over the map. And I was just racking my brain the entire time watching this film of what this meant to the story. But apparently these changes were significant to the look of certain photos or source videos or source photos of Monroe. And I make a note of it because I was, if anything, I needed to watch it again because I was just so focused on, all right, why are we going black and white here? Does this mean something to Monroe? But it's not necessarily a critique, again, in the theme of all my reviews of trying to guide your watching to this and give the most favorable outcome to your watching experience. It's, see it as a style, don't see it as substance. So the runtime, I would say, is another big note. Honestly, it just felt like 5 hours to me. This stream of conscious editing I like a lot because we bounce around to the most important beats of Monroe's life, to the point that there's a section in the film that we go from 7 Years Itch to Some Like It Hot. And I was just like, yes! Yes!
That's good. That's
definitive
really good.
watch list. But no joke. I mean, like I said earlier in the beginning, we don't see a day-to-day or some sort of even, not even in a bad way, a filler scene or some sort of bridging scene. It is just right to the most important moments. And you could say, well, I mean, that sounds like pretty good. I mean, I'm here to watch the Monroe story. It
Right.
better be the most important times in their lives. I think it just has a effect on the film in combination with how much tragedy is in the film and the outlook being only tragedy, that the film has a grinding to a halt type of quality to it.
Oh, that's interesting.
It just...
Is it just because it beats you over the head with it, with a baseball bat, basically?
Yes.
Where it almost comes mundane?
Not mundane, no. Because again, I don't think there was a single moment in these films that when these traumatic or when these tragic scenes come up, my jaw wasn't on the floor.
Right, okay.
Instead, there was no kind of rest. There was no, okay, all right, I get to kind of relax.
Okay.
It was, we are
There was
always,
no life raft.
You're right, exactly.
Right.
There's no respite to the scenes. It's just one after another, agony over agony. And, in some ways I respect it, and that's kind of the whole point of the film. So there's a kind of an artistic element to that. At the same time, it puts me in a very difficult position because would I even remotely call this film enjoyable? No.
Right.
Because it was agony.
It's
it
an
was
experience.
Agonizing.
Yeah, it's an experience.
Yeah.
But that being said, is there fat that really cut?
I don't know. If anything, I wish they would have just gone for the 3 because there's a weird jump in time that we jump right to 62 after Some Like It Hot. And we don't touch on Misfits, and we don't touch on maybe some other very important moments in the closing days of her life.
Yeah.
So the runtime there is just, again, maybe it's perfectly illustrated in you breaking up the film into 2 watch sessions. That's just kind of a real talk there. So. Luxury of watching it on Netflix, I guess. So take it for what it's worth. I would say I'm gonna have to just be a little bit more casual on this one because I'm really torn on what the rating is. I think at heights, I compare this movie almost not in ways that it is as great, but in ways it reminds me of Raging Bull, in the sense that it is all tragedy.
Right. Okay.
In ways, I think this film, on a negative, is a slog and just repeats an onslaught of agony for nearly 3 hours. Then that doesn't even come close to touching the creative liberties taken to depict Monroe in such a severe light, and I really mean severe light. How her mental illness manifests itself and almost kind of sneaks its way into scenes. is shocking sometimes. It's really tough to recommend in that way, but it is also beautifully heartbreaking and relentless in its depiction of mental illness, and wonderfully surreal in its filmmaking in times, which was totally unexpected, once again, for a biopic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This could have been really cookie-cutter stuff. This was the first film that I cried to on the podcast. I don't know if it was the episode 52 is getting me teary. I said, well, how many movies? 260? How many?
Really?
Yeah, just towards the end, it just got me. And I think it was just because I was exhausted.
You were worn down.
I was worn the hell down by this misery of a movie. But that's really the truth of it, and that's why I kind of wanted to, just more have a kind of relaxed approach, because I think my margin for error of where my rating for this movie has a big margin for error. There's a big variance to if this movie could hit for you or not. I think my pitch for this is that this film it is a biopic for Marilyn Monroe, but it is specifically through the lens of being distinctly cruel and kind of kicking you while you're down over and over and over and over again. If that sounds good to you folks at home, guess what? I got the movie recommendation. You're in luck. I'm extremely torn on this because I think at a high, could give it low 80s because I really do think the filmmaking and again, it is an experience. There's artistic qualities to this film.
Yeah.
I think at a low, though, I could very easily see someone, even myself, walking away with this and calling this like a 33,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Your range is that, and you watched
that
it
big
after watching it twice.
It was that big. Now, granted, I'll be honest, the second rewatch was more so, again, kind of going back to these black and white scenes and these switches, the editing. I was like,
much more studying of
yes,
the shooting of the film and, the film itself.
Because I somehow kind of doubted even the director saying that it didn't mean anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but yeah, that was much more of a kind of a study element of this. And
this was the most challenging, though, would you say?
Yeah, this was
260.
I would say of 2022, definitely the most challenging film that I watched. This beats out Crimes of the Future, because you look at something like Crimes of the Future. I was in love with it. Exactly. Yeah. Crimes of the Future, I could stand by and say this is new sci-fi. There's a reason why you watch this. In this, it's like, well, do you feel like being miserable?
Right.
Do you feel like seeing a really rough depiction of a woman's mental illness?
How would you compare this to Mass?
Mass was a little bit more tasteful. That NC-17 is brutally achieved. The film holds almost
emotionally achieved.
Yeah. The film almost needs to hold some punches in some ways. I feel like it is a slave to its own severe light that it's shining on Marilyn Monroe, in the sense that they don't celebrate her wins at all. A perfect example of this early on in the film is she's actually watching, I think it's Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Crowd is laughing at a joke, and she's like looking at the other crowd members in like disgust and like, oh, you find that funny? There's no celebration of the wins, and that, again, the comparisons to Spencer, the comparisons to being Ricardo, that's really where it comes up, that the film's priority is this psychological deep dive into the woman behind the icon, and that's fine. This one does it the most drastically, though.
Okay.
Oddly enough, I think it is probably my favorite out of the three. So, again, I'm real torn on this one. I'm real torn. Closing notes is, again, hopefully this long-winded discussion of it can kind of help you navigate it. I mean, folks, I always am kind of giving you reasons on where this would be a niche watch for some people. I feel like this is much more of a kind of a trigger warning. If you are not looking for something intense, if you're not looking for something challenging, artsy, not run-of-the-mill, this is not like, I just got my food, got to put something on Netflix.
Right.
Time to watch. This is where I think those lower ends of that very wide range of scores I gave, that's where it's going to hit. But I was really provoked, challenged by this film, but I really am walking away with, I think Dominic did a wonderful job as creating possibly the most unique and possibly the most relentless type of outlook to a biopic. Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go ahead and give Blonde a 75.
Oh, okay.
You thought it was going to be South 50?
No, I didn't. I think that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
75, but I think that's a clean score, and I think from what I've seen so far, Like I said, I am an hour and 20 in at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that's fair. I was kind of liking it.
Yeah.
Not that I was like sitting there enjoying
Sure,
it, but
sure.
like I was liking it.
Yeah.
I will say I probably shouldn't talk about it really because I'm only so far in.
Listen, that's a unique perspective. I would definitely give it to the end because there's a compounding factor of how much tragedies are overlaid.
I think starting it over would be huge. Yeah. Because I'm really just trying to go for it.
Yeah.
I think 75 is fine. It's higher than most other critics, and I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have been...
We can end with that. I mean, this is getting torn apart.
Well, here's my main question. Do you think that this film should have been made? If it's on a fictional telling on a book or from a book, is it important to get this film made? Are we really learning about Marilyn Monroe? Or is this lies?
I don't know.
Are we just watching this as another fake story?
Or are these mental qualities, these mental illness qualities, blown out of proportion for dramatic beats in the film? I think it's a very good question.
Yeah. Should we just watch... You don't want to say the comparison I was about to make.
No, do it.
Well, like, is this like watching Tombstone? Is it really the real Wyatt Earp story? Is it really Wyatt Earp?
I'll tell you,
but we watch
cowboy comparisons are how we are going to get the ratings across to people. It is not a Tombstone.
But I think it might be. Tombstone doesn't tell real Wyatt Earp and Wyatt Earp like this.
I wish Tombstone was this intense.
But but what I'm saying, not intensity, as far as depiction of the character. Can we really even call this a proper biopic? Just like Tombstone is not a proper biopic of Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. It's not that you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
I do. I would stick more so with the trend of Spencer and being Ricardo's, though, because there's kind of a building subgenre here of these psychological looks of women. Women the women behind the icon.
But would you agree with me that being with the Ricardos was actually trying to get more of the accurate depiction? This wasn't interested in being accurate. This was being... As far as accurate to the person, it was dedicated to being accurate to the book, I believe.
Yeah.
And from what I've been reading about it.
Sure.
I have been reading a decent amount about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's why I'm just like, what's the importance of this film then? There's a lot of weight behind this.
I think the importance is the artistic vision that Dominic put out there. Because it is an experience, you know what I mean?
But you still...
Biopic aside, Dominic is communicating something with his sadness, you know what I mean? I don't think he just said, okay, and we have no fun, happy moments to Marilyn in this, you know what I mean? I think... His outlook is specific, and that's really where, I mean, what's going to crack it into the 70 and then also kind of prevent it from the 80 for me, if I'm going to break it down, is that I was walking away and saying there was an immense amount of care put into that. Was that care maybe directed towards a very harsh spotlight on Monroe? Sure. But I definitely came away with being affected by what they were trying to communicate artistically. It's a bit over the head. It's a bit kicking you while you're down constantly.
Yeah.
But in the same way, like I said, I mean, in no ways is this the height of Raging Bull. But that's what I give credit to Raging Bull about, that it's this conflict in the ring and then conflict inside the home.
Unrelenting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I think in this way it was kind of a supercharged version of that, but in very similar qualities, kind of had the same type of outlook for that.
Okay.
I mean, doozy.
it's definitely doozy. I love that. I mean, capping off our year episode with something challenging, I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it's 75 is the best film on here.
Yeah, it is.
Best film of the week.
It is, yeah, to Monroe's actual real life detriment. But that's not to say that I didn't enjoy kind of watching this through. And if anything, not that I said I knew Monroe, maybe like some outrageous fans, are online saying.
Yeah.
I definitely had an opinion of the depiction here, and especially when it comes to the real life Hollywood events, of the films. I mean, the films are in the movie, so there's maybe I enjoyed this a little bit more for the pre-work that I did for it as well.
Right. Wow, great week.
Doozy. I was real sweating this one.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
Oh, just before we run these down here, anything else, or are we rolling credits?
No, I think that's good, folks. If you have a different slot for maybe what you think should be in the Marilyn study, maybe we drop Misfits, we add Niagara, or if you have your favorite Marilyn Monroe film, definitely write in. We would love to hear from you. And,
yeah, you can just write into dailyratings@gmail for right now until we get the other one set up on the site and everything. Yeah. So. Yeah, we love the dialogue. We love the communication with you all.
Absolutely.
Vin, thank you for watching these films. Hopefully you're strong enough for next week. We can keep it going. Another 5.
Another 5.
But thanks for stopping by, Vin. Folks at home, we're going to run it down one more time here. We have Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with a 70%, The 7-Year Itch with a 56, Some Like It Hot with a 55, The Misfits with a 62, and Blonde with a 75%. Folks, we thank you so much for producing and listening to the podcast, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, could you give us a good rating or tell a friend about us? If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you receive from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.